This is not the Orville episode I expected to see. Spoilers may be ahead. I may not be able to talk about this without doing it. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and on this episode of the Orville called Deflectors, we start out with a breakup. And as many of the Orville episodes have been talking about this season, it's about relationships, often between crew members, between a member of the crew and her family, and even between one species and another. And in this case, we go back to look at the Mocklins. There's not a whole lot of humor in this episode. It's dead serious. One joke they do have where their son asks, what is a relationship? We had a relationship before, said Bortus. And he said, what is a relationship? And he said, it is what comes before the egg. That was kind of a funny line. Meanwhile, we have very good views of what a Mocklin ship looks like. A very nice design. I rather like it. And the Mocklin shuttle, which falls in line with what the ship looks like. And really very well designed. I thought that it played well against the Orville. And we see different cultures that exist within the same planetary union here, which allows planets in that have rather diverse culture. And the Mocklins, every time we see them, have something a little more interesting. We know, for instance, the Mocklins will kill their mate if they consider that they should divorce. However, in dating, there's no such thing, but it's almost as bad if a person is so in such despair that they wish to commit suicide. It's a terrible thing to do, something nobody really should suggest to anyone. But the Mocklins have a law against it, where if you do that, they obviously can't punish you, but they can punish the rest of your family. And so you not only shame your family, but you sentence them to prison. And that is something that provides a great incentive not to do it by their interpretation of an effective law. And so we learned this about the Mocklins. We learned that they're not the most tolerant people in the universe. And we've seen that before when they were dealing with their offspring, with Bortus's and Clyden's, what was once daughter, and legally converted to a son because of the all-male race, except in very odd situations on Mocklin. So it expands that, but talks about alternate lifestyles, shall we say, and in that doing so, we profess from the viewpoint of Mercer and much of the rest of the crew, the problem with Lokar is not something that anybody should be concerned about, and yet the Mocklins are dead serious about this, and it was a terrible thing to even mention to one of their most esteemed members. So this is a very complicated episode, a serious episode, and one that may not appeal to all of the Orville viewers by taking a pretty straightforward parallel between what the Mocklins consider deviant and what the humans consider normal or reasonable, and what we as a people, some consider deviant, some consider normal or reasonable. So there are a couple of interesting little things in here. We hear White Cliffs of Dover. It was a popular song during World War II, and I suppose directly after it, which they open up in a simulator room that is simulating in New York Street in 1945. And they did pretty good with that. They apparently did this on a back lot somewhere. I think I recognize the same streets that they used in the Green Hornet back in the 60s. I believe it was that same New York street. It was a little too narrow to be a real street, but worked for the New York City set that a lot of productions used. And they had a lot of period cars in there. I can't imagine where they got all of the late 30s and mid 40s cars that came out in that. So I love the way that they used the set, and they used it several times during the episode, which means that they spent a whole lot of money on that, and it was well worth it. It was beautiful set decoration. It was very reminiscent of musicals that we've seen. It seems that Seth likes old movies, and so we get the romantic drama this time. And it's something that sets very good mood. And White Cliffs of Dover is a wonderful song there as well. One other funny thing is when Tala says that that's the most strange thing that's happened on the ship. And of course, the other people at the table name off 5 other things that were stranger than this, which actually did happen in previous episodes. So there was a little bit of comic relief in here, not a whole lot, but like I said, a different kind of show. I'd like to know what you think about this. This is a much more straightforward, I think. It's told in parable, of course, but it seems to be a much more straightforward message than we've seen before from this show. Also, I don't think that I have seen another Trek show that was similar to this. I don't recall anything that tackled this exact subject matter in this kind of way. So we'll hand it to Seth to have come up with the idea. And now I'd like to know what you think about this. Please let me know in the comments what your reaction to this episode is, and what you think about how they handled all of this. And so with that, we will leave you to talk to us. And if you haven't subscribed, and if you haven't clicked the bell so that you know when the next video comes, I would appreciate your doing so. So, in the meantime, don't go far.